Thank you. So it's a bit of story time about to happen here now. I think I'm not unlike many Canadians in that I didn't grow up in a forestry environment, and I had a bit of a different opinion than I might have now. So I just wanted to bring you back. I was born in a little isolated mining town called Labrador City. My first trip to the cabin was when I was just 3 weeks old. I will point out that the cabin was made out of wood and heated by wood. But when I was 9, I saw this movie called Fern Gully that made me think that cutting trees was bad, especially for all the fairies and woodland creatures out there in the woods. This really stuck, and I became a real nightmare, giving my dad a hard time about cutting wood to heat the cabin, in addition to boycotting any rabbit or caribou that was served to me. I had no idea what forestry was or that wood even came from trees, but I just knew that anyone who cut trees for a living was not to be trusted. But here I am now. I am literally the person who marks trees to be killed and facilitates them being cut. And in case you haven't seen Fern Gully, this is the guy who unleashed the villain in the movie. I see a striking resemblance now. It's a story for another day, what happened between then and now, but here I am. So how did I come to be okay with this? I wanted to share some key turning points with you. To start, trees don't live forever. Yes, some can live to be very, very old, big, beautiful, and awe-inspiring, and keeping forests as old growth is important across the landscape. But most trees in Ontario live to be less than 200 years old. Trees die of old age, are killed by insects, disease, fire, wind, drought, flooding, lightning, and even by their neighbors. There's only so much sunlight, soil, and water to go around after all. You might know that trees are excellent at storing carbon, and as they grow, carbon is accumulated in the tree. When the tree dies, the carbon is released into the air and soil as it decomposes. I eventually caught on that this is where forestry can play the role of climate change superhero. The don't touch method of admiring forests from afar isn't going to cut it. Harvesting trees before they die means that the carbon can remain stored in wood products. Next lesson, cutting trees can actually help forests. I know this is hard to imagine, but let's step back a bit. Before European colonization of this land, Mother Nature, sometimes with the help of First Nations, did as she pleased. Fires burned. This was essentially the hitting of the reset button in a forest, and it's a necessary phase of the forest life cycle, even though it does lead to the release of carbon. Now, we attempt to control fire to protect our own values. We try to emulate fire through our harvesting practices, but we're harvesting less than half of the amount we should be to maintain these natural disturbance levels that we deem sustainable through our long-term plans. And I will point out that in Canada, the sustainable harvest level is 1% of the forest per year. As a result, many forests are older and denser than they should be because we're not meeting these sustainable harvest levels. This is where biomass markets could really help. Harvesting over-mature forests and thinning declining stems increases the health and resilience of the future forest. There are a lot of homes for the healthy trees that can be sawn. You know, we have a lot of markets for solid wood products, but the rotten, crooked, or suppressed ones don't have a home right now. And that's where you all come in. Every bit of a log that leaves the forest has to be used, and you have to take the bad with or instead of the good. So we really need markets for low-end materials. Next, trees grow back. Forestry does not equal deforestation. It's the law to make sure that trees grow back. More than 65 million trees are planted in Ontario, just this one province, every year. But that represents only half of the area that's harvested, so why so little? We plant trees when we harvest forest types that are complex to regenerate. In my case, like white pine, red pine, oak. Those are ones that would thrive after a forest fire because they're slow growing and get overtopped by more competitive species that would have been killed off by a fire. However, some of the species of trees grow back with such enthusiasm that we don't need to plant them. They're just grateful for the increased sunlight and take care of business themselves. We call this natural regeneration, and it happens on the other half of the harvested area. In both cases, it's our responsibility to make sure that we got what we said we were going to get as regeneration out there in the forest, and we are obligated to spend the resources to make sure that that happens. This is one of my favorite quotes. Oh, you can't see the bottom word, but I'll read it to you. Forestry is not rocket science, it's more complicated. The picture I had as a kid of monstrous machines and people cutting giants in the forest and walking away couldn't be further from the truth. My first full-time forestry gig as a registered professional forester was writing a long-term forest management plan for 250,000 hectares of crown forest. No big deal for a 21-year-old, right? This took 3 years of my life and included running models 150 years into the future, writing 3 multiple 100-page binders worth of documents, working with a multidisciplinary team, and many periods of consultation with First Nations and the public. This intense process has to be complete for each public forest in Ontario before even one tree can be harvested. And that's just the first step. It's important to know that people who do jobs like mine, registered professional foresters, are a regulated profession, like doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc., and we can be taken to task for not managing Ontario's forests in the best interest of the public. But that's just the first step. There's much more to do. There are many boots required to get all of the work done after that 600-plus page plan that looks 7 generations out gets approved. So when you get to the on-the-ground phase, there's someone verifying the forest inventory and writing a forest operation prescription, someone looking for wildlife and other values that need to be protected, someone following the prescription to evaluate and mark each tree for harvest in central Ontario's forests, someone laying out protected areas and boundaries, someone actually doing the harvesting, someone supervising the harvesting, someone monitoring the result. I could go on and on and on. You get the point. But that's 4 pairs of boots before one tree gets cut, and about 12 pairs by the time the forest is successfully regenerated. It's labor intensive, so I liked the minister's point about the need for skilled labor. Definitely. I've personally done almost all of these jobs, and I can tell you that they are all equally important, challenging, and rewarding. This is one that has really warmed my heart through the years. People who work in forestry love the forest. I've met loggers who ask me how they can protect birds that they see nesting on the sides of public roads, who work slower and as a result make less money so that they can protect the regeneration that will make up the future forest. Foresters who are so invested in the work they've done in their careers that they continue to visit areas that are special to them even after they retire or move to another job. They don't just work in the forest. They live there, they recreate there, and often they're following in the footsteps of previous generations of their family who did the same. So, I have come to know that actions have results. Trees and forests move on a different time scale than we do, and as a very impatient person, it seemed impossible to me that I would ever see the results of my actions when I was at the beginning of my career. But it's happened. The 10-year terms of the forest management plans I've written have passed. The trees I've planted have grown. These are the same trees in the middle 2 pictures. The forests I've thinned have regenerated or grown and are ready for another harvest. This is absolutely the best way to learn to believe in the sustainability of forestry, but if you don't have that opportunity in the meantime, I hope you can take my word for it. So, of course, I am still a tree hugger, but I no longer think that the way to protect forests is to not touch them. Managing them carefully makes me proud to do the work I do, and as a result, I will always choose wood as an option to any solution to serve our society when possible. I'm excited about the future possibilities where this resource can replace more non-renewables. It's better for our world, better for our forests, and better for our future. And I hope that we can work together to make that happen. And I hope that I have made you all be a little bit more comfortable about the possibility of using wood for biomass energy. Thank you.